As we start a new year, it's a good time to look not only at what we're doing about our energy challenges, but also what we aren't doing. Are we putting enough resources into science and technology to help find new ways to meet those challenges? Some say no. President Obama's top science and tech advisors recommend tripling what the U.S. spends to develop new energy technologies. They say it is essential to help hold our place as a world energy leader. So in this edition of Energy Now, we're looking into what science is doing right now and what it might do in the future. And we have a very special mixed panel to take us through that. Three leaders at the forefront of energy sciences. To my left, John Holdren is director of the White House Office of Science and Technology, the science advisor to President Obama. Ralph Cicerone is president of the National Academy of Sciences. And David Sandalow is an assistant secretary at the Department of Energy. He tracks what the rest of the world is doing on the energy science front. Gentlemen, thanks again for joining us, and Happy New Year as well.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
If we could dive right in, what should we be excited about on the energy science front that we haven't seen or that we haven't paid enough attention to? John, let's start with you.
Well, there's a tremendous amount happening, and we need a lot to be happening in the domain of energy science and technology. We're working on more efficient batteries. We're working on better biofuels that exert smaller impacts on the environment. We're working on better fuel cells. We're working on cheaper photovoltaic solar energy technologies. We're working on better nuclear reactor designs that will be both less costly and safer and less prone to transfer technologies that could be used for nuclear weapons.
All
of these things
impact our lives on an everyday basis at some point if they're fulfilled, correct?
Well, all of us need energy, and we need to get it in economical and environmentally sustainable ways. Mm-hmm. And as the energy use of the world grows, our need for technologies that can provide that energy in ways that are affordable and environmentally tolerable grows as well.
Ralph, what about the view from the private sector? You talk regularly with business leaders. I know they tap you when they want the inside information regarding the science world. What has you excited right now regarding our energy future?
Well, everything that John Holdren just said is true, but I think what excites me the most is what I'm seeing in young people around the country. When I go on college campuses, everywhere I go, the students are turned on by what they can do on the energy research agenda. Whether they're biologists or physicists or engineers, also people looking for job training, which they have a sense is going to lead them into energy industry. This is really an encouraging sign that so many of our motivated young people see this challenge as a future.
Mm-hmm. David, you've traveled around the world in your position with the Department of Energy. Are the best ideas indeed here at home?
I tell you, I think Americans are making a lot of progress. And just to add to what John and Ralph were saying, one exciting development here, I think, is the way we're bringing together energy technology and information technology. And I would ask our television audience, how many of you out there think you know how much it cost you to run your refrigerator on electricity in the past year? Say plus or minus $25. And I'm guessing, based upon when I asked this question to television audiences, most people out there don't have any idea. And it's an irony, because when I go to buy a refrigerator, I'm very sensitive to the difference between $699 and $799. But then I don't pay any attention to how much the electricity costs. Now, I think 10, 20 years from now, we're all going to know how much our household appliances use in electricity, what that costs, and that type of information technology is going to make its way across the business sector so that we are able to better manage energy.
Mm-hmm. John, when you sit down with the president, and you do have his ear on these issues, what's it like? What's the conversation like? Do you talk about simple things like David mentioned regarding your refrigerator's energy efficiency? Or is it the future of modular nuclear reactors?
Well, first of all, what I would say is that with this president, there's very little tutorial content to the conversations I have with him.
He has a good grasp.
He already has an exceptional grasp of what the issues are, what the technologies are, what the options are. And so most of the time is spent talking about what we need to do. What are the policies that are needed to enable advances in energy technology? What are the policies that we need to help people get the information, as David was saying, that they need to make sensible decisions? What are the policies we need to advance energy efficiency technologies that enable the goods and services that people want to be delivered with less energy and thus less cost and less impact. Mm-hmm. And those efficiency technologies are at least as important as new technologies for energy supply. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the policies to get that stuff to happen, because this president already knows the technical facts that he needs to know.
David, speaking of policies, what about ARPA-E? It's one of a number of programs that are hard to identify from the outside looking in Washington, but Secretary Chu says we're looking for home runs here. This is essentially high risk, high reward energy R&D.
Thanks for the question, Tyler. And this is one thing that gets a lot of us very excited about energy sciences these days. This new program that's called ARPA-E, it's modeled after a program called DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which has a long history. DARPA is part of the Defense Department. It's credited with helping to found the internet, or to discover the basic technology behind the internet. And a number of other technologies. ARPA-E was created within the past 2 years by President Obama and Secretary Chu under our stimulus legislation. And it is looking for the home runs, as you said, the things that will really make a difference for our energy future. Innovative projects like turning sunlight directly into fuel without having to go through plant products. Energy storage technologies that are utterly transformational and breakthrough products. So this ARPA-E program is tremendous, very exciting project, and I think it's got huge potential.
Ralph,
let me say a word about that kind of science that ARPA-E is working on, as well as a lot of other people around the country. It's not whistling in the wind, because these ideas of the kind that David just mentioned, like extracting fuel from sunlight on water, these are principles that have been well established. It's just a question of getting the materials and the numbers right. It's difficult work, but in so many of these areas where it might sound like science fiction, in fact, the ideas are based on solid scientific principles with demonstrated projects. For example, you can put electrodes in water and run electricity through the water and see the bubbles of hydrogen and oxygen coming out. The question is, how do we do that on scale and getting it to work? And that's not the only technology that people are working on and depending on, but it's an example of one that's based on principles, knowing how to do things, only we have to get better at it.
Two of these other possibilities within the ARPA-E program, a car battery that can go 500 miles versus 100 or so, which we're dealing with right now, a laser to help drill geothermal wells. John, what is a home run rate? Is it 1 in 20 projects that get funding? Is it 1 in 100?
Well, I think we'd be happy actually with 1 in 20, because we are looking for home runs and things that'll make an enormous difference. And when you're out there on the cutting edge, when you're trying to do science and technology that will really break the mold, you have to expect a lot of failures. If you don't have some failures, you're not trying interesting enough projects. But the history of investments in energy science and energy technology is such that only a small fraction of what you try needs to succeed to transform the world, and we think that's what's going to happen out of ARPA-E.
All right, gentlemen.
Let's pick up on breaking the mold quickly, Tyler, because I just want to highlight something that John was saying earlier about President Obama. He has broken the mold by naming top scientists to top jobs in his administration, including John Holdren here, his science advisor, one of the most extraordinary scientists in our country. And my boss, Secretary Stephen Chu, won the 1997 Nobel Prize in Physics. I sometimes sit in budget meetings in the Department of Energy. Now, I wasn't there before Secretary Chu, so I can't judge beforehand, but I see him get briefings, and I see these people unfamiliar with the experience of briefing somebody who probably knows more than they do about these topics. It's really pretty extraordinary to have somebody of that caliber, to have somebody of John's caliber in the administration.
I feel like I've had a mini lecture from Secretary Chu as well during press conferences, I understand. Let's take a break right now. We'll catch our breath, and as we move forward, our discussion of the future of energy science continues with a closer look at our science scores here in the U.S. and deciding whether or not the gap is too big to overcome regarding our comparisons with the rest of the world. That's when Energy Now continues.